Thank you for watching Scary Animal Attacks. If you like this episode, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment or two, then subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications whenever we release new episodes.
Welcome back to Scary Animal Attacks. Today's episode takes us back in time to a prior nation. The nation of Zambia today was previously governed by Great Britain and known as Rhodesia. The area just west of Lake Mweru is a valley that was previously well populated, but had since dwindled in numbers. The west of the lake lies a sloping plateau that starts at around 3,000 feet in elevation and over 32 miles rises to over 5,000 feet in elevation. To the west of this plateau is a large game preserve, which sets aside land for wildlife to thrive, void of human intervention. This area was kept free of people due to the presence of sleeping sickness there, and officials were monitoring the disease. The slope between Lake Mweru and the plateau is scattered with brushy ravines and dotted with acacia trees. The grasses growing in the flat areas are several feet tall in summer season and can completely conceal most animals here. If you know how predators make their living, then you'll know that they use transition areas to ambush their prey. Well, given the criss-crossing ravines and changes in plant life and hills, the predators of this area honed their ambush skills and began to develop a peculiar affinity for human flesh. With the human population moving out of this area and a recent ban on gunfire, the remaining people started to be stalked by a unique and intelligent predator. James Dunbar Brunton was a doctor visiting the Chengi station near Lake Mweru. He was sent there to help out with the endemic sleeping sickness when he had some locals approach him and tell him about a local conundrum. It seemed there was a peculiar lion creating problems for the natives. In January of 1909, observers described a very light-colored lion stalking and killing a local woman near the village of Masika, and then another victim a few days later. Both victims were taken at sundown, and residents began to grow concerned. About a week later, a man and his wife were leaving their village of Masika about 8 in the morning. They were heading to a nearby village to visit friends. They were about a quarter of a mile from the village and were approaching a creek. At that moment, a huge white male lion sprung from the bushes next to them and tackled the husband. As the lion bit and clawed the husband, his wife ran to a tree and climbed up as high as she could. She screamed for help to anyone nearby, but her cries went unanswered, as villagers dare not approach the lion for fear of getting eaten themselves. Her perch in the tree kept her safe, but granted her an amazing view of the lion killing and eating her husband before her eyes. A few miles away, in Chisunga, and 5 days later, a woman was grinding corn under the eaves of her home with her friend. They were unaware of amber eyes observing their every move as the evening waned. The white lion crept around the hut and surprised the women from only a few yards. It killed one of the women and didn't stop there. It pounced on her friend as well, killing both. It apparently had a preference between the two ladies and carried off one of their bodies into the bush and consumed it. A few short days later, a resident was out tending his garden in the afternoon. As he weeded and tended his growing vegetables, the hunger of the lion drove it toward him. It surprised him and carried off his body to eat as well. The white lion had taken a toll on the villagers around Chisunga. It headed into the hill country a short distance away, near the village of Tolindi. The occupants of the village had built a series of small fires to warm themselves after a recent rain shower passed through. As the villagers squatted and stood around the fires, the white lion sprang from the brush surrounding the village and ran toward the middle of the village. The residents scattered, seeking protection in their huts, except for one unfortunate woman. The lion pulled her to the ground and dispatched her right in the middle of her own village, in front of her neighbors, family, and friends. Around 4 miles away, the village of Sengi hosted only about 14 households. The villagers were not very diligent in the upkeep of their grounds, permitting tall grasses to grow right up to the edge of their village. Typically, villagers would remove brush and grass for a safe distance around their villages to prevent any animal from coming too close before being detected. The white lion crept right into the village and attacked and killed a woman standing at the threshold of her hut. After listening to the fascinating series of attacks, Dr. Dunbar Brunton decided to investigate the area himself. He and his entourage pitched his tent near the village of Sengi. It began to rain, and the villagers headed toward the shelter of their huts. The doctor had a quick meeting with his native coordinator, whom he trusted very much. Then the assistant returned to the fireside to warm himself. The doctor bathed himself and had just started to dry himself off when the men around the fire began yelling, "Lion! Lion!" The terrified men ran into the doctor's tent and raised a fearful clatter. He put on his slippers and night clothes as he ordered the men to be quiet. The doctor called out for his assistant to bring his gun and some candles for light. The group had no lanterns, so they ripped bundles of thatch from the hut roofs and lit them on fire for light. The men tepidly ventured into the flickering dark toward the direction the roar of the lion had rumbled from. Across from their fire and a few meager yards from the doctor's tent entrance, the group found, impressed in the mud, the outline of a man with lion tracks all around it. The man's body was nowhere to be found, and neither was the lion. After reviewing the lion tracks, they could see the beast had sneaked upon the group and observed them from an elevated tobacco bed. It roared as it watched the men around the campfire and ambushed the doctor's trusted and intelligent coordinator as he fled from the fireside. The doctor and his entourage used their candles and thatched torches to follow the lion tracks through the damp grass for about 50 yards. It then began to rain and extinguished the candles and thatched torches, leaving the group in the silent darkness of the rainy night. Out of fear, frustration, and anguish, the doctor fired 2 parting shots with his rifle in the direction the lion tracks traveled, as it carried the body of his assistant off to eat it. The men returned to the camp and tried to get sleep. The men all stayed awake and talked out of fear, and kept the doctor awake as well. He was overwhelmed with sadness and worry after losing his trusted assistant. He tried to assure the men that the lion would not return for another victim, as they huddled fearfully in his tent. At sunrise, the doctor picked up and loaded his .450 large-bore hunting rifle. This rifle fires a bullet about the size of the end of your pointer finger and can kill any animal in Africa. A short distance from the village, the party came upon the lion, but as the doctor got into shooting position, one of his entourage yelled and frightened the white lion to flee the body of the assistant. The doctor approached the place the lion was laying and observed bits of bones scattered about, with blood smeared all over the grass. The tall grass completely concealed the lion as it carried the assistant's remains off further into the brush and away from the hunting party. The hunting party began to trail the lion through the grass again when they came upon an interesting point in the lion's track. As they topped a small rise, they could see where it had set the body down and walked back behind a tree to look over its back trail to watch its pursuers. The lion then returned and picked up the man's body and proceeded through a rocky climb up a hill. It was clearly using the elevated vantage point to keep an eye on the men as they followed its tracks. As the doctor and his entourage crested the top of the rocky hill, a brown shape took form obscured by the grass. The doctor aimed his rifle in the direction of the brown form, but one of his arm-bearers grabbed him and told him it was a body, not the lion. The brown item the doctor had seen was the clothing of his assistant, now dead. The body was laying on its back, with its arms pointing toward the group as if it had been carried, with them dragging behind. His upper body and head were uneaten, and he had clearly been killed by a single bite to the neck. His right leg had been completely devoured from the hip down, and his left knee had been chewed on substantially. The party was left impressed with the idea that the lion had left the body intending to come back to finish it after their pursuit of it had ended. The group continued to trail the lion, but had difficulty as the rocky terrain obscured previously easily observed sign. They would find a print here or a turned-over rock there and made slow, careful progress as they followed the lion. Within around a half a mile, the track dropped into a steep ravine with very tall grass and giant thorn bushes. The doctor climbed up a small group of boulders to gain a good observation point and instructed his 14 assistants to beat the grass. That means they would walk through while making a lot of noise, side by side, to push the lion from cover for a kill shot from the doctor's rifle. The group included 2 arms bearers with shotguns and rifles, but the men refused to do the beat. The doctor at first threatened them, then incentivized them with offers of rewards and money. They again refused, and threw stones into the grass to drive the lion from cover. The doctor noted that the tribe the entourage was from was the Watabo tribe. They were reputed not only to lack courage, but to have a belief that if a man-eating lion is killed, its spirit will divide and possess more lions, to become man-eaters as well. They believe that a man-eating lion is possessed by the spirit of a chief who's seeking vengeance on people who did him wrong. He found out later that they didn't want him to kill the lion at all, and that is why one of them yelled to scare the lion initially. It could have all ended there and then, but the fear of creating more man-eaters by killing this one prevented the doctor from killing the white lion. Just before the attack began, the aging chief of the Watabo tribe had uttered a prophetic threat from his deathbed. He told them that he would return to take vengeance on his tribe for reporting his mistreatment of them to the government. He said he would possess a lion to kill and eat the people who'd vexed him. This prophecy deterred the men from pursuing the death of the man-eater. The party departed the ravine and collected the remains of the assistant, abandoned by the lion earlier. They buried him near the village, but villagers reported that a lion had later tried to dig up his remains. The doctor later lamented the fact that they didn't consider setting up a hide near the man's body and waiting for the lion to return to its cache to feed upon it. For 2 nights the lion haunted the fringes of the village, then followed a series of rocky outcroppings to a nearby village called Lambwe. In broad daylight and in the middle of the afternoon, the lion trotted right into the middle of the village and attacked and killed a boy right in front of his family and neighbors. It then killed 2 more people from a nearby village called Kabembwe, after which it returned to Lake Mweru. From the series of villages along the Luawo River, the lion killed a man, 2 more women, and then another man. 4 victims from a close series of villages in only a few days had now met their fates at the teeth of the man-eater, in addition to the prior victims. The lion had now established a brilliant pattern of human predation. People were such easy and common prey that it would kill and feed upon one person and then leave the body to hunt and kill another person, without ever returning to the prior body to feed again. This made setting up a hide and waiting for it to return to feed impossible. The locals set up trap guns, which are high-powered hunting rifles booby-trapped to fire after a string trigger is tripped by a passing lion. They also set out poisoned meat, but these tactics only led to the deaths of a few hyenas and leopards, but not the sought-after white lion. The locals hid themselves away in their huts, preventing any attacks over the next 4 days. They would emerge well after sunrise, knowing the likelihood of being surprised by the lion would be diminished, but not completely eliminated by doing so. This forced the lion to move on about 10 miles to a nearby village called Shuriwari, where it killed a sick woman living on the edge of the village while she sat at her door. The white lion then returned to Sangi to seek more human prey there. The villagers saw the lion tracks in the soil of their village and immediately locked themselves up safely in their mud huts. In the early morning, just after sunrise, the lion charged right into the middle of the village and killed a man with a single blow from its massive paw. The villagers yelled and drove the lion away from the village. The lion then ranged down toward the Kalungwashi River, where it killed several people, even while they walked along the busy main road. The villagers again set out trap guns, but they were fruitless to stop the man-eater. Dr. Dunbar Brunton was then transferred to another district, a little over 100 miles away. Back at the government house in Chiangi, the workers there had ended their shift for the day and had headed back toward their nearby huts. They observed the approaching lion and raced back to the safety of the government house for the night. In the morning, 3 boys who worked at the government house were armed with a single rifle and lined out from the home. The lion had hidden itself amongst a pile of roof thatching just outside the government house and ambushed the boys there. The boy carrying the rifle fired, but missed from a distance of just 2 yards. The middle boy was snatched by the neck and flopped over the lion's shoulder. It carried his body off into the brush to devour him. In the morning, a group of villagers, including one armed with a rifle, tracked the lion. A few hundred yards from where the boy was taken, they found his lower leg. They continued to follow the lion's trail for 3 more miles up a hill. The party crested the hill and were surprised to see the lion standing over the boy's body just 20 yards away. The armed villager fired at the lion but missed, causing the lion to bolt into the brush for cover. After the lion continued to terrorize the villagers along the Kalungwashi River, Dunbar Brunton accepted an opportunity to return to the area. He was helping out with the endemic infections of sleeping sickness there and was enjoying eating lunch in the shade of a tree at the time. A village chief approached him and told him the lion had laid siege to his mud hut the night prior, while he, his wife, and his baby hid inside. He indicated that the lion had attacked the door and caved in a portion of the mud walls around it. It had reached into the hut with its paws initially until it finally opened up the wall enough to get its head inside. At that point, the chief's wife had pulled burning firewood from the fire and beaten the lion about the head, forcing it to retreat for the night. The family had a restless night without sleep, but the lion did not return to attack them again that evening. The chief's family and most of the villagers in the area were unarmed. The doctor instructed the chief to purchase some spears from a neighboring city. The following night, the lion killed another villager. Next, it attacked another mud hut, utilizing the same wall-breaking strategy it used to terrorize the chief and his family. This time the occupants had metal-tipped spears, and as the lion tore through the mud wall, they stabbed their spears into its neck. As the occupants drove the lion away, it retreated with one of the spears protruding from its neck. A short distance away from the hut, the lion pulled the spear from its neck with its teeth. The spear was found the next morning by the occupants with teeth marks for proof. This confrontation bought the area 2 days of peace, as the lion recovered hidden amongst the bush somewhere nearby. Authorities from the area sent out a professional hunter who set up trap guns on trails entering or approaching the village. This hunter used poisoned meat and placed sheep carcasses as bait. Upon returning to the village of Tawashi, Dr. Dunbar Brunton found a large pool of blood in the road and was happy to hear that the trap gun had successfully wounded a lion, but was it the white lion that had been terrorizing the area? He learned that the villagers raced to the trap gun after hearing the report from the gun to observe the lion staggering away from the trap gun location. The professional hunter then followed the lion track for 5 miles into very thick bush, where he discontinued the pursuit for fear of being too close to confront the lion safely. This brought in a 6-week period of peace, as there were no more attacks in the area. Near the village of Kalembwe, 3 men were suddenly killed in quick succession of each other. The hopeful thought that the lion had died from its gunshot quickly disintegrated with the killings. The white lion had apparently returned with a vengeance, its white appearance confirmed by many observers of the attacks. The injuries of the lion definitely made it more aggressive toward the villagers. One day it charged into Chingi Station, sending the residents scattering into the buildings for safety. It laid outside of the carpenter's house and roared loudly as its hunger pangs drove it to find food. A few days later it returned to the station and stalked upon men relaxing on the veranda. An armed villager fired at the lion and again wounded it, but it fled back to the safety of the brush before it could be killed. As it left the Chingi Station area, it would claim a few victims from nearby villages. One day it charged into a village near Chiengi in the middle of the afternoon and killed the chief and his brother while they warmed themselves near a small fire on the side of the road. Within a few days, the white lion and a few others stormed through Chiengi at night and tried to break into houses several times. They even leapt over a wall surrounding the commissioner's house and paraded around his courtyard, roaring loudly, but could not take any human prey during these raids. This prompted a visit by another professional hunter, and while he waited for the lion to appear, a man was taken not more than 100 yards from his hunting stand. The hunter and his aides placed trap guns along every path in the area. The guns had strings that were stretched across the trails, and when a passing animal would pull the string, it would fire the gun. The following night, one of the trap guns shot the white lion right through the ear, killing him instantly. Another trap gun had wounded a second lion, who was hunting with the white lion, but this lion had escaped into the brush, severely wounded. The villagers of the area boisterously celebrated the death of the white lion who had so terrorized them. The lion was inspected and was noted to be old and in too poor of shape to pursue its normal prey. The lion had several scars and wounds in various states of healing. In its stomach were found the toenails of some of its recent victims. This lion may not have had the power to pull down water buffalo or wildebeest anymore, but it demonstrated enough intelligence and cunning to outwit human hunters for several months as it stalked their communities for much easier prey. Thank you for watching Scary Animal Attacks. If you like this video, please consider hitting that like button and clicking on the bell icon to keep you notified of our latest video releases. Sharing our video links on your social media might help save a life and spread the fun. As a member of our human network, be careful out there, because you don't want to end up on an episode of Scary Animal Attacks.